Hello, welcome to the Culture Quarter. I'm Siobhan Henu. We're here at the National Gallery in Canberra, which has just undergone a massive facelift that will allow it to double the number of artworks on permanent display. And we're about to go and have a look at some of them. The new wing behind me also represents a new era for Indigenous art in this country, because it's been elevated to the kind of prominence it's never had before in an Australian gallery. It's the home of the nation's art collection, and now Australians can see it in a whole new light.
We've let the sunshine into the National Gallery of Australia.
A new paradigm, you could say, for the art world.
If anybody has got a cliched view of what Australian Indigenous art is, they only have to come here and that will be exploded.
Indigenous art has been elevated to a whole new level by the gallery.
It is a real milestone. It's almost like we've been waiting 60,000 years for this moment.
There are 600 works and 11 new galleries, organised by geography and spanning the traditional and the urban.
Some of it's quite confronting, and that will surprise a lot of people.
That's certainly the statement that we are making, is that here in the nation's capital, visitors from interstate and or overseas can come to one location and see the very best of Aboriginal art from right across Australia in the one location.
For the first time, Aboriginal art is front and centre in an Australian gallery. It's the first thing visitors see when they enter and the last thing they see upon leaving. Like the Aboriginal Memorial, the 1987 work that's a homage to the men and women who perished after colonisation.
A forest of souls, and each pole is representative of each year that has passed in that 200-year period.
The gallery boasts the largest Indigenous art collection in the world, so it's fitting that as much as possible is on permanent display. From the earliest bark paintings purchased by the gallery to Western Desert masterpieces and contemporary sculpture. Many of the artists and community elders were at the opening, keeping a watchful eye on proceedings, observing their art in crisp Canberra light. The works were ceremoniously sung into their new home. It's a very modern repository for very ancient art. When it was opened with great fanfare by the Queen in 1982, the National Gallery was already too small to house more than a fraction of its collection. It was roundly criticised for its brutalist architectural style. But even while the building has its supporters and it's appraised in purist circles, any curator will politely tell you that it's quite the professional challenge. Dark, with limited hanging space and no clear entrance. But the original architect, Col Madigan, scuttled plans to extend the building, and only after years of negotiations did a revised plan get the green light.
I can't quite believe it. It's been on the drawing boards for a while and it's actually happened.
The new wing is a breath of fresh air, built with natural materials from around Australia, and the displays are as modern as the architecture. Several new sculptures were commissioned to mark the opening.
We want it to be a showcase for the world.
It's a fair bet the world will enjoy the show. From the end of October, the National Gallery will be staging a show looking at the evolution of street art in Australia over the past 10 years. It's an art form that easily makes the transition from street corner to gallery wall. It's accessible, sometimes a little bit confronting, and usually pretty fun. Cheryl Hall sizes up the scene in Melbourne.
a lot of the time I do these characters, these men that are sort of downtrodden and melancholic people, and I think the idea of dressing them in a little costume, like either as a bunny man or, you know, like this morning as a ladybug man, it gives them that sense of joy and frivolity that's always the glass half full. And for me, that's sort of my outlook on life, is, you know, things are always on the up, so it gives them a sense of relief. It takes them out of their everyday kind of struggle.
Stormy Mills may have failed art at school, but his graffiti is now changing what may soon be taught in class. He's part of an international art movement that's being bought up by the big collectors.
Well, it's really grateful, but yeah, it is very humbling that you know, when you paint something on a wall and 24 hours later it's painted over by somebody, the fact that somebody would come into a gallery and buy it to hang in their house, it's like, that total juxtaposition that, it does make you think, wow, this is pretty awesome.
Like other street artists, Stormy Mills has been painting in far less salubrious surroundings since he was 14.
When I was 14 years old and going out at night painting, if I'd been stopped from doing that early on, then I probably wouldn't be here now, and I think that would, you know, for me it would be a great shame. I don't necessarily think that people were so much against it. I think there's a very vocal minority that applied that pressure for, you know, graffiti to be illegal and to get rid of it and all those other things. But, you know, the amount of kids that are out there painting it, they're kids with parents, and I'm sure their parents wouldn't want them arrested for creating artwork. One thing informs the other. I still paint a lot of walls. I would learn something when I'm painting in the studio that I then go out and paint on a wall, and vice versa.
Ken McGregor has taken 5 years to put the exhibition together. Not an easy task when most street artists want to remain anonymous to avoid fines and even jail.
Deface and Banksy, they're not their real names. You know, I happen to know quite a few of their names because I've been involved with them over the last, 5 years in particular, but they have false names and false bank accounts as well, because they don't want to be tracked back just in case they get caught for work that's previously done, several years ago.
Some of the artists, like Paris's Blek le Rat, have been around for years, but it's only recently their work has become valuable.
The rat, well, that's just the first image that he ever did in the late 70s. The small rat that he littered the streets with of Paris, and it was a comment of the dirtiness, and he's often making fun of things. So he's got David holding a machine gun here. This is one of his very famous iconic images of the beggar, and obviously there's a huge amount of poverty in Paris, and he's commenting on the fact. Swoon is in her early 30s, so she's had a huge amount of success for a young artist. She's based in New York, and she'll do. This is one of her well-known images. She actually pasted it up on the wall all over New York and LA. You make me crazy when you...
Melbourne artist Ha is well known for his images of Australia's famous outlaw, Ned Kelly. He says it's a revolutionary image that fits well with street art.
It's one of the greatest billboards you can have on the street. You don't have to actually go into a gallery. You don't have to pay a fee to actually go and see the work. It's there. It's all over the place. And that's what these street artists do.
Melbourne is becoming famous for its graffiti, a reputation it has tried to obliterate in the past by cleaning up the city and painting over it, some of it well known. This Banksy, the tiny rat with the parachute, was in Hosier Lane in Melbourne's CBD until earlier this year when a council cleaner painted over it. Ken McGregor called that cultural vandalism, but he also acknowledges that street art is not permanent. Places like Hosier Lane are so popular, work is constantly painted over by other artists. These images by Stormy Mills have now disappeared too.
I think you have to let it grow as well. Melbourne is the street capital of Australia, and it has the respect of all the great street artists, and Deface and Banksy and Black Barat. They've all been here and they've all stencilled the laneways of Melbourne. So internationally it stands up just as good as London does, just as good as New York did. I think the best thing for Melbourne is to give the kids some more laneways to do, because the amount of tourism that's generated from it is huge as well.
For the artist, it's about the ability to immediately engage with the community.
There's a real sense of freedom as well, I think, painting a wall, because it's, ultimately it's transient. It's not going to last forever. And it kind of frees you up to work a bit more fluidly and more relaxed, and I learn a lot by doing that I'd wish it would be as easy to paint canvas like that sometimes.
That's it for the Culture Quarter for now. We'll leave you with some more images from the National Gallery, celebrating its most popular artworks and its architecture. I'm Siobhan Hinu. Bye for now.